You probably think you know your history, where you come from, the story of your people, the great empires, the heroes, and the wars. But what if there's a chapter missing? Not a forgotten story written in some crumbling scroll, but one hidden deep inside your own body, inside your blood, in the spiraling code of DNA. It's a code older than kings and emperors, a code that records the migrations of your ancestors, their struggles, their victories, and even their secrets. It's the ultimate diary of humanity, written in molecules instead of ink. And sometimes, when we read this diary, we discover connections that seem impossible at first glance. Today, we open one of those hidden chapters, the story of two peoples often portrayed as rivals, sometimes even as enemies: the Chinese and the Mongols. On the surface, their histories clash dramatically. One, the builders of ancient dynasties; China, a civilization of scholars, farmers, emperors, inventors who gave the world paper, silk, and gunpowder. The other, the Mongols, a people of the steppe, nomadic horsemen, riders whose empire once stretched further than any other in history, carved by the thunder of hooves and the leadership of Genghis Khan. They seem like opposites, the sedentary farmers of China against the nomads of Mongolia. Walls were built to keep them apart, most famously, the Great Wall itself. And yet, DNA tells us a very different story. It whispers of a connection so deep, so intertwined, that the old image of separation starts to blur. Because the truth is this: Chinese DNA and Mongolian DNA are not divided by walls. They're linked, fused, and braided together by thousands of years of migration, war, love, and survival. Their genomes reveal that they are not only neighbors on the map, but kin in blood. So how is that possible? How can two peoples whose history seem to clash at every turn carry so much of each other within their very cells? That's the mystery we're about to unravel. But before we dive in, let's pause for a moment. If uncovering the hidden connections in our DNA excites you, if you love the idea of bringing ancient genomes back to life through storytelling, then hit that subscribe button. Like this video to support science-based history, and drop a comment about the most surprising ancestry result you've ever seen. Your story might inspire our next journey into the past. Now let's begin. To decode this mystery, we need to understand what DNA really is and how it carries within it the unbroken chain of human history. DNA, the ancient recipe book. Think of your DNA as your family's oldest recipe book. It's not a book you can pull from a shelf, but one written in a code that every single one of your cells carries inside. This book is written with just 4 letters: A, C, G, and T. 4 symbols that, when repeated in endless patterns, contain all the instructions to make you who you are: your height, your skin tone, even your ability to digest certain foods.
But DNA is more than biology. It is history. Every child inherits DNA from their parents. Parents inherit from grandparents. And over thousands of years, this chain stretches back to the very dawn of humanity. Which means, hidden in those letters is a record of where your ancestors came from, who they met, and how they moved across the map. Scientists read this record using what are called genetic markers. These are like little bookmarks in the DNA text, specific places where patterns vary between populations. By comparing markers in different groups, scientists can reconstruct ancient family trees, showing how one population is related to another. And one of the most powerful tools in this detective work is the study of haplogroups. A haplogroup is like a chapter heading in that ancient recipe book. It's a unique genetic signature passed down through either the paternal line or the maternal line. There are 2 main types: Y-DNA haplogroups, passed almost unchanged from father to son. Think of it as a family surname that never gets lost. It tells the story of the direct male line, stretching back to one original ancestor thousands of years ago. Mitochondrial DNA haplogroups, mtDNA, passed from mother to all her children. This is the unbroken story of mothers, a line that stretches backward through countless generations of women. Together, these haplogroups act like trail markers, allowing scientists to trace the great migrations of human history. By comparing haplogroups between Chinese populations and Mongolian populations, we can see not only that they're related, but also when and how their stories began to intertwine. And here's where it gets fascinating. When scientists started analyzing Y-DNA and mDNA from both China and Mongolia, they didn't find a neat border between them. They found overlapping signatures, shared haplogroups, echoes of journeys, wars, and alliances written into bloodlines. Some haplogroups that dominate in Mongolia, like C2, often called the Genghis Khan haplogroup, also appear widely across northern China. Meanwhile, lineages common in Han Chinese populations, like O3, now renamed OM122, are also found scattered among Mongolian men. This is no accident. It's not a random coincidence. It's the genetic fingerprint of thousands of years of connection. But how did this happen? How did two distinct peoples, with their own languages and traditions, end up carrying so much of each other in their DNA? To understand that, we need to follow the trail of history, back to the wind-swept steppes, to the first farmers of the Yellow River, and to the horsemen who thundered across Asia.
The first seeds of connection. Long before empires, long before walls or horsemen or dynasties, there were only small groups of humans trying to survive in two very different landscapes. To the south, in what is now China, the story begins along the rivers. The Yellow River and the Yangtze River cradled some of the world's earliest farming cultures. Here, people began cultivating millet, later rice, and slowly villages became towns, towns became cities, and cities became the roots of dynasties. These early farmers carried a genetic signature, haplogroups like OM122, one of the most common paternal lineages in East Asia today. This marker became one of the great pillars of Chinese DNA. Meanwhile, to the north, across the endless grasslands and cold steppes of what is now Mongolia, a different way of life was taking shape. Here, the soil was too harsh for rice paddies, the rivers too few for stable farms. But the land was perfect for something else: herding. Sheep, goats, cattle, and eventually the animal that would change human history forever, the horse. Steppe peoples carried different lineages. Among them, C2, a Y-DNA haplogroup that became strongly associated with Mongolian populations. These early pastoralists were mobile, living in felt tents, moving with their herds, their lives attuned to the rhythm of grass and seasons. At first glance, these worlds couldn't be more different. Farmers tied to fields versus herders chasing pastures. But even in these early days, their paths began to cross. Archaeological evidence shows that by the late Neolithic period, there was already movement between northern China and the Mongolian steppe. Items like jade from Chinese cultures appear in Mongolian burials. Meanwhile, domesticated animals like sheep and horses, first spread through Central Asia, found their way southward into China. And along with trade came people. Migrations, intermarriages, and exchanges, small at first, but enough to begin weaving threads of shared ancestry into the DNA of both groups.